This is Women in Linux. Welcome to the Women in Linux podcast, exposing women to information and careers in technology.
Thanks for joining Women in Linux with your hosts Tamika Reed and Dee Partler. Today we have Vladimir Vivien, software engineer and author of Learning Go Programming. Hey Vladimir, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I am awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. We're always super excited when we have visitors, but today's extra special because you are local to us and we have a new budding friendship. So
Awesome.
I'm excited.
I'm excited too.
That's good. That's good. So let's dive on in. How did you start writing technical books? How did that come about?
Slowly. I used to write just learning stuff, write blogs. Because I think when I was in school, I was one of those students who, unless I write it down, I didn't understand it. So I was always taking notes, and that kind of stayed as a habit. And when I started to work professionally, and then blogging became a thing. When I would learn new things, I would blog about it, and that kind of stayed as a habit. And I think the publisher back in probably 2007-8, Pact approached me about doing a book on Java, and then that got published in 2010.
Cool.
And then after that, I swore that I would never write another book because it's a time consuming thing, and
right.
And then back in 2015ish. They approached me again when Go was gaining popularity. They were like, "Hey, are you interested in writing another book? And do you want to write it in Go?" I was like, "Sure, why not? I don't have anything else to do beside work." So,
right.
Yeah, I went through the same thing again and wrote another book. But yeah, it's that's how I got into writing books, and now I've written 2 books.
Man, that's super cool.
Thank you.
So we know that, when you write a sci-fi book or, any type of fictional book, any book in general, you want to take your readers on a journey. What's the journey you want your readers to receive when learning Go?
That's an interesting question because I do think about that, and excuse me. I think when I'm writing, I always want to place myself in the reader's place, and read whatever is in front of me as if I'm somebody else and trying to solve a problem or learning something. Especially with the last book, the Go book, it's a getting started book for newcomers to Go. So the voice, the narration tone is that of somebody who's been programming but is looking to get into Go. And so what I try to do is provide context, but not too much, and explain things that rely on the context that was established, so that I don't have to be too detailed and or leave out too much. And try to strike a balance where if you're coming in, if you pick up my book and after the first, after a couple pages, you understand what's going on, and you can kind of have a feel for the cadence and voice of the book, and kind of predict what, how the rest of the book is going to read. So there's it's pretty, there's no surprises. The voice in the book is pretty welcoming. Try to stay energetic, not too verbose, but verbose enough to where things are not lost in translation.
Right. I know for me as a forever newbie, we're always learning. So we look to these technical books, basically like a Bible. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you just don't get it. It goes over your head. So you need that voice to just kind of soothe it out and just walk you a lot simpler. Sometimes I think a lot of technical books assume that you already know it or
Right.
they've been in the industry for
Right.
such a long time. It's just a second language to them.
Mm-hmm.
And so you do misinterpret what
Right.
the reader needs out of the lesson. And I find that often where I'm just like, what the heck
I know.
happened? So you go to all these forums and Slack to see if people are having the same problem and to make sure that you're
Yeah,
not crazy.
absolutely. And yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And that's kind of what I try to do is if I was asking about a certain feature in Go, and I've done all the research trying to understand it, how would I explain it to somebody without, and make it simpler for them to understand? That is the approach of the book.
Right.
Is everything that you would go out to Google or and scour the forums or read other blogs, because there's tons of stuff written about Go out there, and there's more coming
You can
online
get so
every day.
lost. Oh God,
Exactly.
you can get so lost
You
in the
can.
black hole.
So I think the the purpose of the book is to kind of give you that reassurance that, hey, it's okay. Whatever you're looking for, you most likely will find it here. So I try to take a comprehensive approach where, again, as I'm writing, and I'm notorious for that, and that's why it takes me so long to get a book out, is because even I would write. I've written whole chapters and rewrite them a couple of times because.
Wow.
Yes. Oh, yeah. It took, the last book took me forever to write, and even the first one. That's because I want the tone and the voice to be simple, but not too simplistic, and say something that after you read it, you're like, okay, I got it. I can move on.
Right.
So in order to get to that simple, non-overwhelming tone of voice, it takes a lot. So, like I said, I've put whole chapters down and scratch it and rewrite it 2-3 times. So
right. And even be a reference book where people want to pick back up, because sometimes you buy books and you're just like, I wasted my money on this.
Yeah, right. I understand.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
When you can get a book and you're just like, okay, I'm gonna keep this is the go-to, and that's a book to need to save.
Right.
So, yeah. So you touched on how you started writing your first book, and that was through blogging. So here at Women in Linux, we try to give everybody, people, our listeners, our readers, people we run into, we try to give everybody a 360 view of tech that, there is programming out there, but there's so much more. There's, drones, there's, self-driving cars.
Absolutely.
There is, DOD space. There's so many things that you can do. And so we speak geek.
Mm-hmm.
We speak a lot of geek. So what are your tech passions?
That's an interesting question. What are my tech passion? I think all of it. And I know it's not a good answer, but I literally could wake up, read about tech, and go to sleep reading or doing tech and playing with tech, right? So obviously I like to write code. And another, one of the newer thing that I've been playing with is, machine learning is something that I've played with in the past and continue to follow. So I'm super interested in it. Again, programming is another one. It's not only a way of earning a living, but it's also to me, it's a form of expression, really. Because if you think about it, programming is to me is close to an art form, right? I mean, some people call it an art form, but here you have a blank screen and you have to throw characters at it and make it do something.
Right.
And, it's something, just like an artist, you have to be passionate about to make it work. You know, and people have different views about what programming is. It's a tool, it's a simple tool, but to me, it's also a form of expression. Reading somebody's code, you can tell what they were thinking, their thought process when they wrote the code. So yeah, it definitely programming is up there as far as passion. What else? Music. I haven't done it in a while, but I do have my little keyboard in my little studio in my office. Where every now and then I'll turn it on and make beats. I'm no big time producer, but I can lay down some track.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, man. If you guys ever want to get into the rap game, let me know.
Okay, Vlad, maybe. Okay. We're gonna look you up. Like, we leave no stone unturned. Don't offer women in nothing. Your wife would be like, "What are they doing here? We need tracks."
Babe, I laid out tracks.
we have for track.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, it's another creative outlet. So I used to be into it a lot, but I kind of slowed down. But I'm looking to get back into it again.
Cool.
Yeah, just another outlet of not sitting in front of the computer 24. Because if it was up to me, I could sit in front of this thing, reading and working and writing, learning. Right. That's another big thing. I love learning new things.
Right.
And I think that's probably why I've lasted so long in tech is, a lot of the stuff that, to the point where I am today, a lot of it is, self-taught, even though I've gone to school and, excuse me, and gotten an engineering degree, but just about everything that got me where I am today is, self-taught, a hunger for learning, stay in tech and read about tech, etc.
Just to go back on what you said, because I got a scholarship with Google web development program. And so I've been doing that since the beginning of the year, maybe mid-January sometime. And,
Are you doing it through Udacity?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
Cool. Yep.
And I've taken courses with Udacity before, and I think it's a cool class. However, you said something that answered one of my questions, and you said, like, programming is an art. And I think sometimes the way it's taught like it is accessible to everybody, but you do have to look at it as an art form. Because for me, I'm a perfectionist. And so even though Udacity is an amazing platform, I find myself needing to go more in depth than what the class or that hour that is allotted, or the time, the 3 months to get into it where it's supposed to be over and I'm supposed to know these things.
Right.
You have the forums and you have people that you can chat with, but and you learn the theory of it, but seeing it come to life and actually seeing that code and know what it's doing and having a group of people to gel with, for me, I'm just like, okay, I am a user. And I think for me, I'm like, okay, programming is cool. I want to know how to go in there and change some stuff immediately because I don't want to wait. And I'm expanding on my knowledge base because I'm a learner. I love to learn as well. I can sit in a corner all day and just get it.
Right. No, that's not true. She stopped learning Linux when I was teaching her. She fell asleep on me. But go ahead.
I fell asleep on you because it goes back to when somebody's been doing this and this is their profession, they are teaching from the firsthand perspective, like I've been in Linux all my life. And she was so excited, but it went straight over my head. That didn't mean I didn't go back to Linux. And that led us to where we are now with being co-founders and women in Linux. So it didn't go over my head. It was just that first training session. You had to, switch it up a bit.
Yeah. No, I understand.
You have to know your audience.
You do.
My audience was a
Teachable
nodder.
moment.
My audience was like she was in the nursing home falling asleep. That's what my audience was.
But I'm still here. I am still here. And look at it. We're getting on Oprah right now.
But no, it's
I'm
that's
okay
how
with
it
that.
is. Yeah, it's all right. I
Yeah.
mean, it's all right. You know, there's so many different ways to get to that same goal. You know, it's not a straight line, and that's what I'm learning. It's not a straight line, and you know, some people learn. You know, like you were saying earlier, there are different ways of learning and different ways of consuming and creating as well. So yeah, I can see that.
You're listening to Women in Linux. People need to know that it is okay to move on.
It is so okay to move on, and that's what I was before earlier. We were talking about that. You know, as I got older, I've come to accept my limitations and what I'm good at and what I'm not good at, and you know, it's like now it's like I don't. You know, I'm okay with not trying to figure out everything. You know, when I was younger, I wanted to figure out everything, but now I'm okay. There's so much. I mean, it's so much out there to learn. Right. It's okay not to know that one thing. You know, I'm okay not being a Linux guru. I'm okay not being, you know, a language guru or this guru or ninja this or the, you know, JavaScript that. I'm okay with that. Because there's so many other things I could be good at, right?
Right, and it's so much more to come.
Yes, exactly. And you know, if I can't be good at it, there's always and that's what's so great about technology and programming. If I can't be good at this one thing, I can create something completely different based on that and be good at that. I create my own opportunities.
No. What was funny is while y'all were talking about art, the only thing I could think about was Lisa Bonet on the Cosby Show making a Gordon Gartrell shirt, and you're like, you know, some people are good at that, you know, like you like laying a track. I'm like, I'm Lisa Bonet. I'm gonna put together some stuff. It may not look, but it worked, and then I'll go back and fix it or whatever. You know, that's how I look at it. Like when I think about programming, I'm like, you know, I'm making that shirt for Theo. If Theo wanted that shirt, he should have saved up some money and go get the best he could from the store. But you want that shirt? You want to look like I'm giving you this my best. This is I'm Anita Baker giving you the best I got.
Right. And you know, again, you know, I think sometimes people forget that the art of programming is also a tool, and you know, just like. To me, it's a tool just like a hammer, a screwdriver, or it's just a little bit more complicated, right? And sometimes you run into folks, they're enamored with the tool itself, not what the tool does, and which is okay. But to me, it's, you know, depending on what you're trying to achieve, using the tool could be all that you want to get out of it. I just want to come in, use the tool, get what I need to get done. And sometimes you want to not just use the tool, but you want to talk about it. You want to say, hey, look what it allows me to do and look how quickly it allows me to do it, which is okay as well. It all depends on what we're trying to get out of it.
It's true. And I'm going to give you something that I watched today. I watched Roxanne Shante today on The Breakfast Club. And she's coming out with a movie. What? And yeah, she's coming out with a movie. She's coming out with a movie on Netflix.
How old is Roxanne Shante?
I don't know. I don't know, but this is a lead in to the question.
She's under 50. We're just gonna keep Roxanne under 50.
All right,
based on our generation.
But the young lady that she got to play her part is a young lady that graduated from Carnegie Mellon,
Oh, okay.
that is friends of her. I think it's friends of her daughter or cousin or something. I better think it's her daughter. But anyway, they asked her about how does she feel about the beef between the female rappers in the industry. And she was like, she gave this picture, which is the picture that I want everyone and our listeners to understand when it comes to tech. She was like, had I not did what I did, then that wouldn't allow us to have the Queen Latifah, or it wouldn't allowed us to have the Little Kim and the Foxy Brown. And each one of those journeys allowed us to have different places inside of music. Now we didn't have battle MCs and females. Now we got battle MCs and females. We didn't have females that were able to have a seat at the table. They had to have someone representing them. Now they got a seat at the table and can represent themselves.
Right.
We didn't have MCs that were in movies. And so now we got MCs, female MCs who are in movies, i.e. Queen Latifah and MC Lyte. And she's like at every step along the way provides a progression forward. I had to have that role in order to get there. Right. So that next person coming along can go one step further than what I did, and then on top of that, and then on top of that. So there's a lot of correlation and parallel when it comes to music and tech. But there's this one question is, knowing what you know with that scenario and being in tech, who has been your mentor, and do you mentor other students?
Through my career, I didn't have any particular mentor, but what I did have are coworkers that I learned a lot from. So I didn't have an established mentor, mentee per se, but I did have, coworkers that, when I see him work, I'm like, oh, this dude, or this person, this lady, I like the way they work, or, through conversation, pick out their brain, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And the other thing, because of where I was technologically wise, I was always on the internet looking at what people were doing. So, and even before that, as I'm talking, I'm remembering what I used to do. So, anybody remember what a magazine was? Remember Dr. Dobbs, Byte magazines?
I remember Highlights.
Okay.
I remember magazines.
Okay.
They're not that far gone.
I'm not that old.
So I used to have, I used to, read a lot about what other people were doing in tech. Try to emulate them. And so those, that's kind of the way I navigated. But as far as mentoring others, I actually did that for back in early 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s. There's a national organization called BDPA, Black Data Processing Association. They're still around, actually. And so we had a local chapter, and for 2-3 years, I used to volunteer and teach program. There were kids in high school. They had an age range. I don't remember what it was, but it was between, I think, 11th grade and 9th and 11th, or 9th and 12th. I don't remember exactly. So, I remember going every Saturday. We would partner up with a local company. They would give us space, and we would meet, and I would do my best to teach these kids how to get into programming. And I did it for a while, and then I remember going to competition, because the part of the whole thing was get them ready to go to competition. I think one of the best year I had was we placed third somewhere. I don't remember exactly. So yeah, so I did that, and I think I did it for like 2 or 3 years. It might have been more. So and that's how, that's how I try to give back, and interacting with these young kids. First of all, was kind of a learning opportunity for me, because it was like, I think when I did part of it, when I did it, I was still in school. So it was me, standing in front of the kids and talking to them and giving me confidence to be able to stand in front of a crowd and talk, etc. So it was a kind of a win-win situation. But yeah, so that's and I'm trying to think anybody else. Now, I do remember the exact moment when I got interested in programming, and it was, I could still relive the whole thing like it was yesterday. I think I was about 8 or 9, and my uncle, and I don't know if I've told him this. I think I have told him this, but anyway, my uncle had brought home a handheld. I don't remember what it was, but it was a handheld calculator / computer, and he was showing me. He was like, "Hey, look, you can write small basic statement on this thing, and and then you run it, and it'll return back whatever the program you run, it'll get executed." And I played with this thing for like maybe a couple of days, and I was hooked ever since. So I would say that would be one of my big influence in how I got started.
Was it the HP calculator?
No, it wasn't. I want to say it was a Tandy.
Oh, okay.
Maybe one day I'll ask him. I don't remember exactly what it was. It was so long ago. So long ago.
Oh, dinosaur years.
I know. But it was one of those where with little tiny keys, and I remember writing a small basic program. It would ask you, what's your name, what's your age, and then after that, it basically wrote a statement incorporating your name and your age, etc. But it took me like a day or two to figure it out by myself. And after that, I was like, holy crap, this is awesome.
Right.
So that was, that's how I got started, and that's how I got hooked.
And as I think about mentors, I think along the lines of, like, for our generation, we are the mentors, right?
Absolutely.
Because we didn't have, anyone that, not everybody, but I mean, for me to do Linux administration and computer engineering, I didn't have someone to look to in my community or in my reach to say that, you should go into that, and then here's the path. Or that. I think we are the first generation, right?
Yeah, a lot of us are. Yeah, I mean, like I was telling you earlier, my family, I'm the first to do what I'm doing now, as far as being so deep in technology.
Right.
So yeah, you're right. We are the first.
Yeah, we're the dinosaurs. I hope we don't become extinct.
Nah, never that. Once we're inside, once we open the door, we're here to stay.
I hope so. I'm trying. That's why we do the podcast, and that's why we have the communities that we have, or interact with different communities.
Absolutely.
You're listening to Women in Linux.
So since you've chosen Go, I'm going to assume that's your go-to language. Would you choose that for a beginner to start out with? Would you go back to the school systems now and say, let's scrap Java and let's put in Go as our go-to language to learn first?
I thought about that question, and if I would recommend a language for somebody, and I guess it would depend on their level of interest. If it's a casual interest, I would say no. I probably wouldn't do Go. I probably would do Python or even though JavaScript gets a lot of flack for all the thousands and thousands of frameworks that are out there, but pure JavaScript is a decent language to get started on. And the reason why I say that, so if we were to rank the environment and the level of ceremony that you have to do to get started, to get a piece of code written and executed, I would say the browser is probably one of the fastest, right? Because all you need is a text file and you load it and it executes the piece of code. That's it. And then after that, I would say Python. Python is another piece of language that I think has very low level of ceremony. It's almost ubiquitous. It's in just about every piece of OS. Now, another reason why I say Python is because if you go down the Python path, it opens up the door for other things for you to get exposed to. It may open the door to Linux instead of going down the Windows path, right? And if you go down the Linux path or Unix, then that could open doors and open your curiosity to other things. Whereas if you go to a Java route, you may end up doing it on Windows. And, not that anything is wrong with Windows, but it's just that there's a reason why it's called Windows. You have you're given a window to what actually is going on. You're not there, you so far, the level of abstraction is so far removed that you may not get a good sense of what's going on with your computing device that you're interacting with. Whereas if you go down the Python route, Python, you may, I don't know, you may get exposed to Linux, which may expose you to the command line, which may open, your eyes to other things that if you were to go down the Java plus Windows route, you may not have get exposed to. Does that make sense?
Total sense.
Awesome.
Total sense. And I actually choose Python. Actually, even though Go is one of it's catching up with everything, but I go with Python only because I think if we're going to be in tech, I'm down with algorithms and object oriented programming.
Mm-hmm.
But you can also do that in Python too. But if we're trying to catch up really quickly, I think Python is the way to catch up really quick.
Oh, absolutely. No, Python, there's nothing wrong with Python. But as a matter of fact, again, going back to one of the things I said earlier, which is a programming language is a tool, right? It all depends on what you're trying to achieve. If you want to learn, if your main goal is to sit down over a weekend and learn, hey, I want to break into programming, there's nothing wrong with looking at and doing it in Python. Now, if you've done that and you're satisfied, you're like, okay, you know what? Next, my objective is to work in corporate America and write database code or write front-end apps for an insurance company. Then, okay, then that's a different goal. That's a different need. Then Java may come into play. And again, it's a tool, and that's what is used a lot of time in corporate America. And there's nothing wrong with picking Java to do something that meets your need. But you may not be satisfied. You may be like, okay, I've done the corporate America route. I've written countless web forms and database code, et cetera, et cetera. I want to do something else. I want to do open source. I want to do data center computing. I want to do back-end computing. Then Go may be for you, because that right now in a data center based computing, where you're writing back-end code, Go is basically where it's at. So if that's what you want to achieve, if that's what you want to do, then yes, I would definitely say go, right? But I think it's a false argument, and I see it on online, and I see it on Twitter all the time, where people are touting another language over another one because of XY features. It's a false argument. It's a bad argument too, especially for people who are trying to learn. Now, if you're well established, sure, you can have your argument and argue why Go is better than Python or Python is better than Java or whatever, which is okay. But for, to invite people to come and do this as a career or just to get introduced to programming, I think it's a false argument that a lot of time has no basis. I think a programming language like Python has its place, and we see that in other domain like machine learning and other in other places where Python reigns. And also Java has its place because for the last 15, 20 years, corporate America realized that C or C++ probably was not going to be the choice to write code, just
forever.
not forever, but web-based or back-end and corporate and talk to database. Java offered an alternative that was more compelling for people who was writing corporate based code. And now we have the phenomena of data center computing, where people are writing cloud based cloud native programs, and Go is meeting that need. So there's nothing wrong with learning Go. And I'm sure after Go, there'll be some other program that fits a particular need for that time better than Go. And that particular language will have its day. So, there's nothing wrong with, picking the right tool for the right moment and for the right context.
And what's really important about that is the breakdown of positions. And I say that from a sysadmin perspective, is now broken down into an infrastructure engineer, an automation engineer, and then a back-end engineer, and then a full stack developer that may do the whole thing, but not necessarily the infrastructure piece of that. And I'm like, it's amazing how that, the field has became specialized, but not specialized depending on the company size and the industry that you're in. And it amazes me that I think Google has it now. They're looking for a programmer sysadmin. And I'm like,
that's interesting.
I was like, is that a programmer that knows a particular language?
Well, yeah,
to solve the problem.
And the thing is, computing is all about level of abstractions. So, depending on what level of abstraction we're talking about, people are going to need different set of skills. And it's a mistake for companies to think that, everybody, just because I say I write code, it means that I want to write any sort of code doing any sort of thing. I may enjoy writing code that builds infrastructure, right? And that will fall into, that is completely different than somebody who write code that builds application, which is completely different than somebody who's interested in automation. And at each one of these, concentration kind of map to a level of abstraction of computing. Because, if I want to be the guy, I may want to be the guy who build the actual application. Or you may want to be the person that write the code that automate infrastructure, that, spin up servers or spin up VMs or spin up containers and lay down virtual networks across them and deploy the application. That's a different level of abstraction that requires a different set of skills and may require a different language. It may not be Go. It may be Python. Python may be better suitable to do that. And then on top of that, you have yet different level of abstraction, and it keeps going up. So, it's different.
And so does the pay.
And so does the pay. Exactly. Because depending on what you want to do and the level of abstract, and that's a very interesting point, because as your level of abstraction changes, it requires a different level of understanding of what's going on beneath that particular level of abstraction you're at.
Reach.
And that means depending on what you're doing, it requires a skill level that can make you more money, right?
Yes.
So
and that'll cost you more money.
And cost you more money. Now, so here's a phenomenon that's happening right now. It's like, I'm old enough to remember there was computing before the cloud. And before that, you had a team, a whole gang of people. You pay them to do now what one person just presses a button to do, right?
Right.
And that hasn't gone away. It's just that, a lot of it has been automated. A lot of it has been rolled up into yet another level of abstraction. But
right.
Even when you are the guy pressing on that button, you still need to understand what's going on at a certain level. It may not require a whole team to set up, to set up your infrastructure. There's
right.
no, I have to go down to the office on a Saturday to run cables because we're setting new servers, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, those days are probably gone for a lot of places. But as somebody who write code, or as somebody who maintains somebody else's infrastructure, I still need to understand. I still need to have a level of understanding of these things, even though they've been automating. A lot of it has been automated away. And like you said, it also means more papers, the more you understand that.
Right. But there are a lot that will argue that automation is the way to go, and all of those other layers that you needed to get there, they're no longer needed, which is another point that we make all the time, is that servers didn't go anywhere. It's in the cloud, but somebody's manning those servers in the cloud. Like, you still need to have those fundamentals.
Exactly. That is the absolute keyword. The fundamentals are not going away. You may have scripts that knows how to stand up 20, 30 servers at a time, but once that server, in order for you to design an infrastructure, whether it's automated or not, you have to understand fundamentals of networking, fundamentals of possibly distributed application, if that's what you're doing. If you're writing, if you're building, if you create an infrastructure for microservices, there's some fundamentals that still remain true. So those fundamentals are not going away. They're still going to remain true. How much of manual labor have to be done to get those things stood up? That's what's changing.
You're listening to Women in Linux.
All of it is changing, and it kind of leads to the next question about the beginner and learning microservices, because I think I treat Linux as like the foundation for your career. Like again, understanding file systems and networking and drivers and how does that work and how to, create reverse proxies and firewalls. It's kind of all there in Linux. And then you can pick which one you want to specialize in, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can specialize in networking, but how do we get the young kids who are in college that may be learning Java as their base into microservices before they graduate? Like, should we be introducing them to microservices before they graduate? Because taking the time to learn the Java aspect is great, but coming out and going into a job, people are like, well, we need you to know how to scale an application and troubleshoot the application, system performance, and so forth. We need you now.
Right. And again, going back to what I was saying, it all depends on what are we training these young people to do? If we're just training them to learn the language, just for the sake of learning, then yeah, they're not going to be too fruitful once they step out. But if we, and that's why I'm so excited about places like Coursera, Udacity, and others, and the web in general. These young kids, they go to, they're in college right now, and they're getting the fundamentals, which is, to me, the fundamentals are important. And I think that's what the schools are doing to give are giving. But beyond the fundamentals, the application is that gap that you're mentioning that we need to fill in. And I think things like Coursera and Udacity, that's where they're realizing there is that gap. Yes, once you go beyond the fundamentals, what about the applications? Because, you're in school, you're there for one semester, and that's barely enough to master the fundamentals. And then, right, and then you got to move on. You got some other classes you have to take that has nothing to do with what you just took.
Yep.
And, and you're still responsible to remember, et cetera. So a lot of it falls back on that child or on that person to take hold and make it a point to take charge of their continuing education. And I'm excited about the fact that today I can sit on my laptop and learn about just about anything there's to learn about technology. And a lot of it is free. So I think what we have to impart on those young kids, on those and anyone who wants to get into this field is that, the first of all, fundamental is important. And second of all, it's going to be up to you to kind of continue to make it happen, basically. And if you want to get to the application side, and what I mean by application side, to apply those fundamentals, you have to keep going. And yeah, you might get lucky and somebody hire you and you do it on their dime, which is great too. If you're coming out of school, somebody say, hey, you understand the fundamentals well enough, I want to pay you to come in and see how it is applied. That is an awesome position to be in. But not everybody gets that. So another option is you get the fundamentals in school and on your own time, or on maybe while you're working, jump on that online course, see how things are actually applied and solved.
And it's funny you mentioned that because inside that question I asked, do you recommend any type of books or case studies? But I think as a student coming up, I think those case studies and white papers and YouTube clips needs to be introduced to those students early versus waiting to get out and saying, okay, well, you know what, I don't even know what that is. What does this white paper contain? What is it doing? But, even taking it even one step further is the creation of a white paper and understanding how that happens and what goes into that. I think is a great way to get just people in general from all aspects of tech involved into creating more stuff and understanding things. So that way when you're sitting down in a group project and they ask you about, do you understand how the database works?
Mm-hmm.
Why is this application keep crashing?
Right.
You've worked in a team and you assessed what was going on in the creation of creating this white paper or this case study. Now, when you sit down at the table, you can look back and use those things as fundamentals or a baseline to get into the questions that you should be asking or things that you should be looking for. At least
Absolutely.
a guide, at least providing a guide.
Absolutely. And I think it's all part of the preparation that, sometimes you get depending on what programs you go through and sometimes you don't. I think, as far as preparing folks to get into technology, if you look at, there's a lot going on right now to get more people involved in technology, which is, to me, I think these are great movements. And, I haven't followed them closely, especially, the ones that are designed for young kids. I haven't followed them closely, but I think part of what needs to be stressed or need to be taught to the kids as well is not just, hey, I'm excited about technology for the sake of technology. But like you're saying, how do you continue to learn about technology and remain excited about it? And, the other thing too is when I did the talk at last week, one of the things I brought up is that we're not all embracing and working in this field or even learning what we're learning about technology all for the same purpose.
Right.
Because I went through it because I love technology. I see myself doing what I'm doing today and not do anything else. And I would be perfectly happy because what I do every day is, I'm knee deep in technology, getting exposed to things left and right. And that is satisfying to me. But others, they're looking at technology. There's some who look at technology as a gateway to somewhere else, which is perfectly fine. And I think the thing is, we should all be welcoming to those people too and say, hey, okay, I understand you come into technology not because you want to be a technology worker necessarily, but you looking at it as a way to get somewhere else, which is perfectly fine. Learn how to program so you can become a better manager. Learn how to program so, maybe you're a musician and you want to look at music from the eye of, programming. Maybe you are, you're into law and you want to understand technological law better, or maybe you're into, different ways and different reason of coming into technology are not all the same. And, each reason require a different set of motivation to get you to technology and get out of it what you want to get out of it. I think a lot of time, people, especially, and I say technology in general, but more so programming, more so writing code, more so software engineering. A lot of time, we expect the same level of motivation and understanding from everyone who happen to stumble on writing code, where not everyone is doing it for the same reasons. You have those who just I'm doing it just because it's a job, and I want to, I want to go in, write my code, get it to work, throw it over the wall, and hopefully it works and go back home, which is perfectly fine. And you have those who not only want to do that, but they also want to get more out of it, and it's a passion. Like one of the questions that was asked earlier, it's a passion. You don't want to just do it at work, but you also do it beyond that, which is also fine. And and you have those that just have a cursory Today, they're all hot and bothered about technology, but it turns out to be just a cursory interest. They just want to know what it is, and after that, they get bored of it and want to do something else. To me, I think all of these level of interest in programming and technology they're totally valid, and sometimes they clash because people have things to say about everything. So not everybody going to be programming, and not everyone want to write a compiler. Not everyone want to write a new language. Not everyone wants to not everyone want to write a new algorithm every time they write a piece of code.
Right.
Sometimes you just want to get some work done, and sometimes you just want to have fun.
Right. Now, in terms of books and training, are you working on anything new? Because I know before you was like you wrote and you was like you weren't gonna do it anymore. And...
I know. So I've been a couple things. I've been because I'm involved in the Kubernetes. My interest right now is Kubernetes, and I've been involved in it for the last year and a half or so. So for the past month or so, I started writing a series on programming, basically using Kubernetes as a platform to create things. So I've been writing blog posts about that, and I'm gonna continue to write on that. I just completed a video series for Pact, the same publisher that did the book. I did I think it should be coming out soon. It's a video series around network programming with Go. Again, fundamental stuff, how to get started, basically understanding the network programming API in Go and how to use it and to build stuff. So that should be coming out in like I said, end of March, I believe. As far as books, I don't know. I'm in no rush right now to jump into another book project. Let's just put it that way.
What about one of those small little handbooks? Like I think they're like 12 pages or 50 pages or something like that.
I call those blogs. If I'm in that mood to write anything that small, I'll just write a blog. Writing about technology is a very non-technological endeavor. It's like it's amazing, dealing with publishers and the format and this and that. I mean, it's gotten better, but I think writing blogs is makes it. If I have a itch for writing, I'll reach for a blog. I'll do a blog or something.
Right.
But I don't know about a book.
It's almost like you wish you could just sit there and record yourself and your screen, and then and you just have that material, and you take it and you give it to somebody, and you say, "Now make a book out of it." Yeah. Take that and do, translate speech to text, grab this video, put it all together, and make a book, and then call me when you get finished. And that might be a good application to create.
Hey, that's right. I mean, I don't mind writing. I mean, I think that's why I jump into the blog every now and then. I think it's, for me personally, as an author, to do a good job, it takes me a long time to do a good job as far as writing, because like I was saying earlier, the way the style that I write, if I notice that something, if a thought process is too complicated and I read it and it's way too complicated, I'll rewrite it several times. And, that may not be conducive to publishing of a whole book like that, because that would take too long. And that's why it takes me a long time to get a book out, because, I want that voice when somebody is reading the book. I want that voice to make sense, to be simple, to be inviting, to break down concepts in simple ways, and that takes a long time.
I can see that. Because I know for me, to write a blog, I was like, oh yeah, I'll get started.
Yep, that too.
It's like, I'm over that. All right, back to learning.
That's right.
You're listening to Women in Linux.
So I did get 2 questions from two people, Luther and William. And William Madison actually said he spoke to you at GopherCon a couple of years ago.
Probably, yeah.
And one of his questions was...
So are we broadcasting now? Or
yeah. Nah. We're still on. We're still on. But this is a question that he asked. I asked earlier. I was like, anybody have questions for you? I always ask the community. Because I always try to shed light on authors who are minority authors, and so that they can be Christmas gifts under kids' trees versus versus having Legos or whatnot. But at least you get your shine, and that's always my goal, because I started looking at how many Black technical authors do we have, and where are they at, and why is it I can't find a book by a Black author and I just want to buy it? Just no offense to anyone who listens, but that's just something I never thought about when I bought a book. I just buy a book. But I never stopped to say, well, who created this book? And let me dig into that author's history and find out what it is that he's accomplished or she's accomplished, and the path that they took to get here to write a book. What was your journey? We have science fiction and mystery and comic books and the whole nine, but technical books and having a panel of technical authors at a conference to talk about their journey and how they got there is I want to create it that day, and that day, so that you can all be on the panel and talk.
Yeah, man, let me know.
I will. But one of his questions was, what is your enthusiasm about Go and the Go ecosystem? What excites you about it?
That's an interesting question. I'm trying to think about. I mean, there are quite a few things about Go that excites me, but I think part of it is after doing Java, and again, after we just got through talking about different languages for different things, I did Java for quite a while before I jumped into Go, and I think I was looking for something different to do, and completely orthogonal to what I was doing with Java. And I looked into other languages after Java, but Go stood out for me because of its simplicity, and still remain one of the trait about Go that I enjoy. Its simplicity, and because of its simplicity and syntax, the way I reason about solving things become simpler as well. And that is one of the things that I still enjoy about the language. And there are other features and there are other attributes about the language that I enjoy, but I think the simplicity of it is what I enjoy. Early on when I first started to write code for a living, you can tell me that I didn't have to create everything that I needed. I wanted to write, libraries, and I wanted to do this, I wanted to do that. And then, further down the line in my career, like I was saying earlier, it became okay for me not to solve everything. It became okay for me not to have all of the answers and rely on the fundamentals that I know to solve things and get things done. And I think that's the same way I see Go. I'm at a place right now in my career where I think having a language like Go where simplicity is what's valued, I'm okay with that. Where I don't have all the bells and whistles of another language may have, or I don't necessarily have access to different syntax sweetness or syntax sugar that other languages may have.
Mm-hmm.
I value that a lot, and especially if you write code or a large amount of code that you have to maintain. I've gone back and look at pieces of Go code that I've written, about 3 years ago, and I could still look at it and almost immediately understand what's going on without scratching my head. Or code that I wrote about a year and a half ago, go back and kind of sit, and read through it. I'm like, oh, okay, I see what was going on. And the reason why is because the language, because its simplicity kind of almost force you to think simply and solve whatever you're solving in a simple way. And I still find that very relevant today, as I did when I first started doing Go.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that because we took a class with Anita Borg with the ultimate Go with what is his name? Oh, what is his name? It's just his name escapes me. Just Bill.
Okay,
Yeah, and we took it with him, and he said the same thing as well too. Just the simplicity of it. But what I hear is the love of the language. I hear I don't know, this is may sound cliche-ish, but it's almost like, what day did you fall in love with gold? Like love, was it brown sugar? Like, what day did you fall in love with hip hop? What day did you fall in love with gold? That's what I hear, and I hear the same thing from William Madison. That's the same thing I hear from Bill. It's like a love of a language. It's like, oh my God, I've been doing it this way for so long. And now you came along, and I just love you.
Yeah, it's again, I still want to keep things in perspective and say Go is a tool just like any other tool. It solves something in a certain way that, given my age and how long I've been doing this, it's a breath of fresh air, right? Now, if you're up and coming or younger or you're looking for a new adventure, it may not be it may not be of interest to you, which is okay. And that's what I want to stress. When I say it's okay, it's okay. Because Go is not for everybody and not everyone is going to like it. And I think it's perfectly fine. But I think where I am today, as far as a developer, I appreciate a lot of what Go doesn't have. I appreciate a lot of what Go try not to be, because it kind of resonates after many years of writing code, it resonates with how I work, and, when you're building a project or you're writing code, every time you put a piece of code down, it's a liability down the line, especially if you're going to be the one responsible for maintaining that piece of code. Or worse, you're writing that piece of code for somebody else to maintain. So every time you put a piece of code down, every time you put a feature inside that piece of code, you basically injecting liability that somebody's going to be responsible for later. So having said that, document is a great way. Yes, document is a great way to make sure that liability, somebody down the line understand what it is, what's going on. But the language can also, make that easier by not overcomplicating things. And a lot of that has to also do with style, because you can overcomplicate things with a most uncomplicated thing, but at least the language is not it's not the thing that makes things complicated. So if, you can always abuse Go, just like you can always abuse anything. But at least the language is not the tool that, it doesn't stop you from abusing it. But also, if you use it the way, I think it personally, if you use it the way it was intended to be, it can be something that makes you highly productive.
I like that.
Thank you.
Oh. So this brings us to our last question of the night. It's called the shameless plug.
All right.
You can shout out your kids, your
Which
animals.
is really not a question.
Your book, your life lessons, or you may have a question for us, or you may want to lead the audience with a question, but it's your chance to toot your own horn, like we talked about earlier.
Yes. My chance to toot my own horn.
Be brave.
Oh, it's a shameless plug, isn't it?
Be bold.
I know.
Be the shizzit.
Yes, go cop my album coming out. I don't have an album.
Once we lay down these tracks.
I mean, I'm super humble to be in a position right now to be involved in what I'm involved in. Working in a place or brand new position where I'm involved in I've been involved in Go for a few years now, and now Kubernetes, and I'm super humble, and I get hit up on Twitter, people DM me and ask me for advice, etc. And I think it's I don't realize it often, but I think it has a lot to do with what I've been able to accomplish, and people take notice to that, and I'm super humble for that. And I don't know what else and that I could toot my horn about, but the book was a big accomplishment. Took me a while, but I got it out. Like I said, I just gotta finish a video series on Go, and at the end of the day, what I want people to realize, Go and any piece of coding technology is just a tool. If it's not right for you, don't do it. We've been lucky that we have access to different technologies all over the place. And if Go is not it, if Python is not it, if JavaScript is not it, if Java is not it, there are tons of other languages that are out there that you can try. And and I think personally, to me, the thing is, it's all about the hunger to learn and to feed that hunger with curiosity. To me, I think is what's more important than one language or one piece of technology. I think it's the hunger to learn and keep learning.
Awesome. I'm gonna help you out with your shout out too.
Yeah, go ahead.
Please go cop the album
in the form of
books.
By this amazing author.
Learning Go programming.
Awesome.
Co-author Go design patterns for real world projects.
Yeah, that's the other book.
And then JavaFX. See, JavaFX 1.2.
All right, don't cop that one. Don't cop that one.
No. Application development cookbook. You may not have to copy because he's on the Go thing right now.
No, well, that's because
just because you wrote it.
All right, so if you're gonna be generous, I'm all for it. But let me tell you the story about that book, because I don't think we talked about that book. So back in the day, there was a technology called JavaFX, and that was when Sun owned, Sun Microsystem, basically was the shepherd of Java and etc. So, and then they got bought out by Oracle. And Oracle was like, we're not going to do JavaFX script anymore. So that news came out like a month after the book got published. So JavaFX really never saw the light of day. So, it's a good pile of paper to have if you want to have it, but pretty much everything inside that book is not relevant. So, lesson of the day, technology change, and it changes fast. But all the other books, get them. Cop them.
Cop them? Okay, that's where you laid down the tracks?
Yes,
okay.
I laid down like Alan Coppett.
Well, we also want to thank you for joining us and taking the time to talk, share your thoughts.
Thank you.
Share your journey, and also being able to share where you see things are going and provide insight for those who may want to enter tech, but understanding there are different avenues when you enter, and you don't have to stay in one place and be willing to explore.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. And I tell people the same thing, like, get your foundational skills and then be willing and able to move on to the next thing.
Absolutely.
Anything else you want to add before we get out of here?
Absolutely. I wanted to thank you ladies for inviting me to do the podcast. I think
no problem.
This is my first one or second one. So, and I really appreciate, I really enjoyed it, having a conversation around tech, and I thank you guys.
No problem. We thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to the Women in Linux podcast. Women in Linux is a 501c3 not-for-profit organization created to get women involved in the field of IT using Linux as a foundation. You can connect with Women in Linux through social media at Women in Linux on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. To join weekly meetups, go to meetups.com/Women in Linux. For more information and to connect with Women in Linux, go to www.womeninlinux.com.